Welcome to Withdraw Consent. Today I want to do a story similar to the one that I talked about a couple weeks ago, was the Jewish power one, and it was talking about how the extremist elements of the Talmud, like what that would lead to in their thinking and their superiority over others. They said, Hitler was right. I'll link that one if you didn't catch it a couple weeks ago. This one, though, is going to be similar, and it's going to be about how where Judaism and the fundamentalist Talmudic rabbis go in relation to the genocide on Gaza if you take it to its extreme. So I'm not making the claim that this is what the Likud party thinks, what the opposition left-wing party thinks. This is a radical view by fundamentalist rabbinical Jews. And this is where it takes them, and they're just going to say some terrible stuff to quite part a lot, even though they're going to say it in this, we know this is going to go on the internet and this and that. So here we go. So I got two references below, and we're going to look at them because they have different quotes in them that we can gather. So this is from March 8, 2024, The Cradle. Israeli rabbi says, end to everyone in Gaza, including babies. Of course he does. Rabbi Eliyahu Mali and his yeshiva are sponsored by Benjamin Netanyahu's government. So we're just going to look at, these aren't long articles, but I think that they're, why do they got to keep the pictures on the side? Okay, whatever. So, so he basically is at this Shirat Moshe Yeshiva, religious school, and it's in the occupied city of Jaffa. I'm sure it's Jaffa. I'm not sure. Well, so basically on March 8th, he had a conference and he said, quote, according to the halakhic principle, which is a religious ethical system of legal reasoning in Judaism, which we've discussed before, all residents of Gaza must be ended, end quote. So when asked during the conference if babies should be ended as well, he said, quote, the same thing. You can't be clever with the Torah. Today he's a baby, tomorrow he's a fighter. There are no questions here. Today's terrorists were previously 8-year-old children, end quote. I also want to add in here that this came from a comment that Suspicious Bird 487 on YouTube was making on one of my videos to another person, a terrible human being he was talking to, and he was bringing these quotes up, and so then I went and found the quotes, of course, and so give him credit. Quote, those who create the terrorists, end quote, should also be ended, he said in reference to women in Gaza. Real quick, if I could just say, when we're talking about this, yeah, everything they're saying is true. The person who is your terrorist, he used to be an 8-year-old child. That's obviously factual. Obviously, there was a mother who created that child. If you're the kind of person who believes in pre-crime executions for what may or may not happen in somebody's future, you're a terrible human being, no matter which way you cut it. And this reminds me of the Kaufman book, Germany Must Perish, that was written by an American Jew in the World War II period, but a little bit before the war started, I think. And it got New York Times bestseller, and it was just talking about euthanizing, sterilizing the German people and this and that. And it got rave reviews. Hitler printed hundreds of thousands of copies, had them translated in German, handed them out to the people. It just sounds like that kind of garbage. Okay, so let's go back to this article. So he went on to explain, this is interesting, that Israel's war in Gaza is a, quote, mitzvah war, end quote, which is defined as a war of commandment in Jewish tradition. According to Jewish law, this kind of war does not require permission from a Sanhedrin, also known as a council or assembly, such as the war against Amalek, previously declared in a biblical reference by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the start of the war on Gaza. So I think this is interesting because the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu said that this is a war against Amalek, and since everybody who's not a Jew is, or who's not aiding Jews, is Amalek, so I'm Amalek, so this is just a war against me. If they wanted to take it to that, like if they wanted to kill all of Amalek, I would be included in that, is what I mean to say. But these guys are saying it's a mitzvah war, which is a more serious thing. And it's a war of commandment, and it doesn't have to be permitted by the Sanhedrin. Now, there is going to be a disclaimer he's going to give at the end about following orders from Israel, so we'll see that in a second. But there's a difference between a civilian population in other places and a civilian population in Gaza. In Gaza, according to estimates, 95 to 98% want us destroyed, end quote. Also, like if you wanted to take this to its conclusion, you could say, since all North Koreans are indoctrinated that America's evil and they all want evil, they all want America's destruction, then what? I should agree that we should just preemptively nuke them? Absolutely not. That's insane. Quote, Quote, since this is a sensitive issue and I was told that it was being uploaded on the internet, I want to be ahead of the curve and say that the bottom line is that you have to do exactly what is said in the IDF's order, Malley added. So that's kind of unclear what he's saying right there. And the next one, there's going to be a better quote, the next article, but he's just saying, even though I'm saying I want all these, the full genocide and everybody to be killed, still follow the IDF's order because the rabbi students in the Shirat Moshe Yeshiva serve in the Israeli army. So he's talking to actual soldiers. So some in the Israel have distanced themselves with from this rhetoric, such as Israeli labor leader Mirav Mikhali. And just to be fair, I want to read, this is a more mainstream refutation of what the rabbi is saying. So I'm going to read it to you to be fair. Quote, using halakha does not give any rabbi permission to present Judaism or Israel as bloodthirsty and revengeful. This directly harms the security of the state of Israel, and like other distorted statements in the name of halakha, it will be used by our enemies. I demand that the IDF and the Ministry of Defense stop cooperating with the yeshiva until the rabbi is fired. The IDF must not allow such dangerous moral corruption in its ranks, end quote, she said. Okay, and so that's very sensible plan. Because even if you believed the things that the guy was saying should be said, you still say this because it's just a bad look, you know? And then he's long been a controversial figure just before the war in 2021. Shortly before the outbreak of the Sword of Jerusalem battle between Israel and the Gaza resistance, he was beaten up by Palestinian citizens of Israel in the streets of occupied Jaffa. Okay, and it's going to mention that in the next article too. Let's go to this. This is from the Middle East Monitor. We've used them before. They do some good stuff. According to Jewish law, all Gaza residents must be ended. This is March 9th, 2024. And this is supposed to be a picture of, this is a Palestinian baby that was ended. I kind of looked at the picture. It doesn't really look like it, but could be. I know lots of children have, so I'm not disputing that at all. Let's see if I can get the side stuff off or not. Nope, can't ever get the side stuff off. Okay, so we're not going to read all this one. We're just going to read the highlights, the quotes that weren't in the other one. So basically, he's getting the people who graduate from there, who serve in the Israeli army. He wants them to commit massacres against the residents of Gaza. He said that according to Jewish law, all residents of Gaza must be ended. When asked about the elderly and children, he replied, quote, the same applies to them, end quote. Now, I have no idea why you would pick the elderly, because he's got excuses because the young are going to grow up to be terrorists. The mothers are going to be mothers of terrorists. But the elderly, I don't really know. Doesn't make sense. So here again, he describes it as a religious war. It was mitzvah war in the previous one, but he gives a little more explanation here. Quote, the basic law in a religious war, and in this case, Gaza, is that, quote, you shall not leave anything alive that breathes, end quote, from Deuteronomy. And if you do not kill them, they will kill you. Today's saboteurs are children in the previous military operation whom you kept alive, and the women are the ones who produced the saboteurs. So using this quote from Deuteronomy even emphasizes that he really means everybody. He added, quote, it is either you or them. This doesn't make sense. No soul can live on the basis of, quote, from the Talmud, if someone comes to kill you, rise up and kill him first, end quote. That doesn't make sense. No soul can live on the basis of, if someone comes to kill you, rise up and kill him first. Whatever. This applies not only to maybe he's indicating that he wants to preemptively, why he wants to preemptively end everybody. This applies not only to the 14 or 16-year-old boy or the 20 or 30-year-old man who points a gun at you, but also to the future generation. This also applies to those who produce the future generation as well, because in reality, there is no difference, end quote. Obviously, there's a huge difference. So, in response to a question about ending elderly people, he claimed, quote, there is a difference between the civilian population elsewhere and civilian population in Gaza. And Gaza, according to estimates, 95 to 98% want to annihilate us. So that's interesting that that's his excuse for the elderly, is that 95 to 98%. I wonder if he's got a carve out for the 2 to 5%. Okay, and then children too, of course. Quote, it's the same thing. You can't embellish with the Torah. Today he's a child, tomorrow he's a fighter. There are no questions here. Today's terrorists were 8-year-old children in the previous military operation, so you cannot stop there. Therefore, the ruling concerning Gaza is different. And then he says his disclaimer at the beginning of the speech, quote, since this is a sensitive issue and they informed me that it would be published on the internet, I want to keep it brief and say in conclusion that only the Israeli army's decrees should be implemented. So I mentioned that it was going to be much clearer here. Okay. So real quick, if you want to take this idea and you want to say this is the exact same thing that the Palestinians are teaching their children, I'm not saying it is, but like, let's say you said they did that, and that they have to even wipe out don't do it, but Israeli children so that they don't grow up to become IDF soldiers. That's the thing this is the teaching right here that Israel fears that Palestine is teaching young Palestinians, right? And it's their own view from this extreme rabbi. And so I think it's very funny to look at. Not funny, I'm sorry, very interesting to look at, and used perfectly by Suspicious Bird, these quotes. And that's what they feared when they told him it was going to be on the internet. Watch what you say. And this is what he said while watching what he said. But then Suspicious Bird has the ammunition to fire at the terrible Jew who was commenting on the video. Okay, that's what I got for you. So we're doing the new schedule Tuesday and Thursday. On Thursday's episode, it's going to be all about, we're going to do all these comparisons on the bombing in Gaza, the tonnage, look at Dresden, Blitz in London, Berlin. We're going to look at Vietnam, Gulf War, just do real quick comparisons and, see, in relation to the size of planets and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty interesting. We're going to do by per capita, all types of stuff. Anyways, that's what I got for you. Hope to see you there.